Hey everyone, this is Crossroads. I am the Reverend Brian Blair, and you are listening to WHUS Stores here in Connecticut on the campus of UConn. Hope everyone's doing really well. You are tuning in to Crossroads, the show where we ask our guests to tell us a little bit about their faith life and their everyday life and how the two intersect. I have a couple of wonderful guests today. We have Scott and Jacqui from Hillel, the Jewish Center here on campus. Hi, Scott. Hi, Jacqui.
Hey.
We'll get to you guys in a minute. First, a couple of announcements about some goings on, and then actually, if you guys have some announcements about Hillel, I'd love to hear them. Over at St. Mark's Episcopal Church here on campus, Wednesday, and then the following Wednesday, we are looking at a book called Episcopal Questions, Episcopal Answers. They're good for people in the Episcopal Church or anyone curious about Christianity in general. There's free food. It starts at 6. Come on by. Next week, my guest is an actor, Jack Gilpin. Look him up on IMDb. Jack was crazy enough to become an Episcopal priest not too long ago, and he serves here in Connecticut, and he's still acting. I saw him on Billions just the other night. So we have Jack Gilpin in the studio next week. Scott, Jacqui, those are my announcements. You want to tell us anything about what's going on at Hillel?
Sure. I'll start tonight at 7 o'clock in the Conover Auditorium at Dodd Research Center. There's going to be a program called Letters to My Palestinian Neighbor, where they will be discussing the relationship between Israelis and Palestinians.
And we've got some other great events coming up. We've got April 7th, all day, is something called Good Deeds Day. We'll be having different stations doing good deeds for people all over the world, hosted at UConn Hillel, 54 North Eagleville Road. We'll also be doing an interfaith barbecue on April 17th. All are invited. And we've got our Passover Seders starting Friday night, April 17th, and we'll have the second night Seder, April 20th. And we hope to see you there.
That sounds great. So I can go to the barbecue.
Oh, absolutely.
Free barbecue.
Yeah,
Great.
it'll be
Thanks.
kosher and halal, so everyone can partake.
If you make it, I'll eat it.
Okay. I will be manning the grill.
Oh, very good, very good. Well, let's get to it. You are working at Hillel. Can you each of you tell me, whoever wants to go first, what you do at Hillel?
Sure. So my name's Scott Selig. I'm the executive director of UConn Hillel, and we really are a Jewish organization for the about 2,000 Jewish students on campus. The campus is comprised of about 10% of Jewish students, and we do a whole bunch of different types of programming. We do observance type events, Shabbat dinners, Shabbat services, again, Passover Seders. But we also do a lot of other types of programming, a lot of fun, social stuff, a lot of Israel related programming, and a wide variety of different activities. Jackie, you want to?
Sure. I'm Jackie Schulfand. I'm the Director of Engagement and Programming. I'm brand new to Hillel. I've been here just about a month. I would love it if anybody would like to come over and say hi. I work mostly with the students on different ideas, different programmings, different events, pretty much anything that they're interested in putting together. I try to help them with that. And so far it's been amazing.
Well, that sounds great. Welcome to UConn.
Thank you.
This show asks our guests to talk about the intersection of their everyday life and their faith life. You guys run an organization that is Jewish, and so I don't think we have to worry about what everyone's faith life is. What I thought would be interesting, though, is maybe we could talk about different ways that people practice Judaism, especially starting with the two of you right here, and then maybe other ways that maybe students around UConn practice their Judaism. Maybe a great way to start the questions would be, what form of Judaism do you practice? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. And we were talking earlier. I look at myself kind of as it's a made-up term called the pioneer Jew. I grew up in a little town in New Hampshire on Lake Winnipesaukee, one of very few Jews in the area. And so I always felt like I was a pioneer and teaching everyone about what being Jewish was like, and kind of out on the wilderness, the frontier. practicing. But now I live in West Hartford, Connecticut. Very vibrant Jewish community. My kids went to Jewish day schools. We belong to a beautiful synagogue that's got thousands upon thousands of members, and it's a lot easier to be Jewish in the world I live in currently than where I grew up. But and we'll talk a little bit about that later.
You mentioned that you're going to a very vibrant synagogue.
Yeah.
What kind?
So we belong to a conservative synagogue. You know, in Judaism, you've got Orthodox Judaism, Conservative Judaism, Reform Judaism, Reconstructionist Judaism, and then there are plenty of other types as well.
Pioneer Judaism.
Yep, Pioneer Judaism is one of them. But yeah, so I actually grew up as a Reformed Jew, and we actually I belong now to a conservative synagogue that my wife grew up as a child. She was bat mitzvah there. Parents were members there, and it's really family for her to be at that synagogue.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Jacqui, how about you?
I grew up in a very traditional family, very traditional type of Judaism. I went to a nursery school at our synagogue where I met my husband, by the way. We promised each other right then we were going to get married.
Very nice.
I went to a Jewish day school. Very active my family was at our synagogue, conservative synagogue. I was bat mitzvahed. I spent a summer in Israel. So pretty much that path that I followed, that I've continued to follow even into adulthood.
Are you part of a worshiping community right now?
I am. I belong to a synagogue, also a conservative synagogue in Hamden. Growing at this point, we're getting larger and larger. It's a wonderful community. I'm actually the ritual vice president, new this year for me, and it's been also just so much fun. It's a great community, great to be a part of it. It's family. It's really
What do you do as a ritual vice president?
Anything ritual. I'm there every Friday night and Saturday. I'm in charge of most of the holidays. For the high holidays in September, there's a lot of work that has to go into Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchat Torah. We have Pesach, Passover coming up. So pretty much I assign Torah readings. I follow along with all the Torah readings. I lead services sometimes. I read Torah, things like that.
Yeah, we have a superstar in our midst.
I can tell. You guys aren't hungover from Purim, by the way, are you?
It is a party. It is supposed to be a party.
It's
It
real
was-
Had the weekend to
Wednesday,
recover.
Thursday.
Good, very good, very good. You talked a little bit, Jacqui, about how you met your husband, and we talked a little earlier about your family. Could you tell us a little bit about your family background?
Sure. Such an amazing family. My father is Roman Catholic from a Sicilian family. Both my grandparents on my father's side were born in Sicily. My mother comes from pretty much the polar opposite. Her family comes from Lithuania and Latvia. Her family, she comes from scholars and rabbis and very learned people in Judaism, in the Jewish way. So it was a very interesting childhood where we would go to my father's family's house for Christmas and Easter, go with my mother's parents for all the high holidays. For all the holidays, we would have Shabbat dinner at their house on Friday nights. So it was really a little bit of everything. But I always understood, and my parents made sure that I understood that I am Jewish. And my father's family's not, but I still was able to celebrate in their holidays in their lives as well. So very rich. It was a very rich childhood.
Scott, how does your upbringing compare?
Yeah, both sides of my family came from Russia and came to the U.S. in the 1880s, 1890s. So I'm really a third, fourth generation, and we family was really important to us. Again, being only maybe one or two families in my community that were Jewish, we really all of our celebrations were family related. We did have a small synagogue that had a part-time rabbi, but I really look back at all of my memories, and it was all about family and good times and bad times. I mean, growing up in the 70s and 80s in a little town in New Hampshire, I faced a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of pennies thrown at me, a lot of dirty words thrown at me as well. And it really wasn't until I went to college to a place that had a large Jewish population that I felt comfortable to be Jewish and outwardly Jewish. I felt that I had to hide it at points.
Do you feel like you felt like working in Hillel with college students might go back to your experience that the first time you felt comfortable being Jewish was on campus?
Well, I found that I really enjoy my Judaism now, and I've grown very comfortable with it, and I wanted to share that experience and give the opportunity for students, however they practice, to have that opportunity to practice their Judaism here on campus. So I think it's really important for me to provide those opportunities and to create a campus environment that's very accepting and open.
You both describe, I think, common stories in America. And I don't know if this is a term anyone's using, but I'm going to say American Judaism. Do you think that there's something unique about being Jewish in America?
Wow. I think there's something unique about being Jewish pretty much anywhere you are in the world. Judaism is very different, as a religion in this country. But I think as time goes by, my grandparents were the first generation here. And I think as future generations are born, we are losing kind of that cohesiveness, where I think that people tend to become more assimilated with the general population. In some areas, not in all areas, but in some areas, I think that we are losing a lot of younger Jewish people.
When you use terms like losing and assimilation, it suggests to me that maybe you're a little sad about that.
Yeah, I think we have a rich, wonderful, traditional background. Our history is really, I keep on using the word very, very rich. But I think as people become assimilated, they're losing that through intermarriage. They're not raising their children Jewishly. And I think as the generations go through, less people are practicing Judaism.
Scott, you obviously both do, but Scott, you're the director here at Hillel. This kind of question must come up, right? You see students all the time. They are whatever generation they might be, perhaps from another place. They're trying to learn and grow and be part of the Jewish experience. What is your sense of what it is to be Jewish in America?
Yeah, I mean, we've run analysis, and about 70% of all the Jewish college students in the United States come from an intermarried family. These are non-Orthodox college students, so non-Orthodox Jewish college students. So that shows that in many ways, a lot of the students might have been brought up into an intermarried home. It means that maybe their experience was watered down, and it really it makes me feel that we here at UConn and Hillel need to provide good Jewish experiences for the students who might not have had those growing up and those type of experiences at home. I actually had a senior walk into my office, UConn senior last May, about a year ago, walk into my office and say she's two Jewish parents, had never practiced Judaism before in her life, and she wanted, before she graduated college, to understand what it was like to be Jewish and to learn a little about Judaism. So she and I spent her last 6 weeks at UConn studying and learning together, and she ended up going on a birthright trip, which is a free trip to Israel that we provide. And so she went to Israel to cap off her graduation from UConn. And I feel like I set her on a nice pathway, and I'm kind of keeping in touch with her to see where it leads her.
So as you talk about the students and even your own personal varied backgrounds, there's this whole sense that there's such a variety within Judaism. You were talking earlier, Jacqui, about something that sounded really neat that you're doing. I think you called it Shabbat around the world.
Yes.
What's this?
So at our synagogue, we were trying to think of some way to encourage people to attend services, to really kind of rebuild the community that we have there. So we came up with an idea to have Shabbat around the world. So we picked 6 different countries that have Jewish communities, and we researched on what would be their traditional Shabbat dinner. We found people that were experts in the areas of the different countries. So there's a group of us that go into the kitchen and we do all the shopping and we do all the cooking, and we've been making the traditional Shabbat dinner. The first one was from Israel. The second one was from Syria and Egypt. The third one was Italy. And this past Friday night, we did a Yemen Shabbat dinner, which was surprisingly, amazingly delicious. And we've just been learning about different traditions from different communities. Even though we are all Jews, the different places come with all different traditions and different histories and different things that they've been through that have helped to shape what type of community and what kind of Jews they are and how they practice.
Having gone through that experience, is there one or two things you might mention off the top of your head that is different from each community that really stood out for you?
Wow. Yeah, pretty much everything is different.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And everything. I mean, the latest one I can tell you, the story from, it's actually a friend of mine whose parents were born in Yemen. They had a very vibrant, rich, beautiful Jewish life in Yemen. They had an imam that was in charge that supported the Jewish community. And when that imam passed away, a new imam came to power. It actually reminds me of the Purim story. That did not allow the Jews to practice Judaism anymore. And life became horrible for them. They actually, each family had their own Sefer Torah, the Torah scroll, and he went around house to house and took them all, took them up on a mountaintop, and left them up there.
Did he burn them or just leave them?
I don't know what his final intentions were, but my friend's mother was able to go back up there, and after the second time she went back up there, was able to locate her family's Torah scroll,
wow.
and was able to bring it back home. But this imam gave the Jewish community 2 weeks to leave. And they had to leave. There was 4 children and the parents and grandparents, and they had never seen a plane before. They didn't know what it was. They thought it was this huge bird and didn't know how it was going to fly them to the promised land. When they boarded the plane, the people on the plane told the Yemen Jews that the plane was too heavy, and they had to give all their jewelry so that the plane could take off. I mean, it's horrible stories, but it's also what made them who they are. And it's a very wonderful community in Israel now, the Yemen community that's in Israel.
You bring up a very interesting point in that story because you have 2 different people who were the imam at different points in time, and literally, one day would separate them, and one day the sun's out, and the next day it's not.
Correct.
And it's still the same faith practice, but different individuals trying to practice it the way they feel is right.
Correct.
Obviously, in every faith tradition, there are people who help make the faith practice go. You could use the term in charge, whatever you want to say. You work here on a college campus, and so you have a very unique perspective about asking people to practice their faith or helping them with it. What is your sense of things about Judaism today generally from the perspective of how students see their practice and how things are going?
So like I said, I've only been here for about a month, but what I find so fascinating is the students that I've had a chance to start to get to know a little bit come from so many different backgrounds. Or I have some students that are from day schools and they're versed in prayers and in Torah and our holidays and how to practice. And then we have quite a few students that have zero knowledge of their background, of their traditions. And I think a lot of them are searching, who am I, where am I from, how do I become what my background is and what my traditions tell me I am, and where do I want to take it in my future. So one of the reasons why I did want to come to the UConn campus and to work on a college campus is because these students are so close to their own independent adulthood, and how can we help them answer their questions, and how can we help them, I don't want them to practice my brand of Judaism. That's what works for me. I want them to be able to find what works for them and what's going to be meaningful in their lives, and how are they going to take it into their own futures and hopefully someday into their own families. And that's such an amazing opportunity.
Scott, how about you?
And I think a big piece of Judaism is the social justice aspect. I think it's we have these words called tzedek and tikkun olam, the idea of healing our world and making the world a better place after we've gone. And I think that really speaks to students. The idea of doing social justice, we've got this great April 7th, this Good Deeds Day, but we're constantly looking at ways where we can help improve our community. We work with homeless shelters and soup kitchens in Willimantic, and we're donating items there on a weekly basis. We're volunteering throughout the community. We helped in the fall rebuild a playground that needed to be rebuilt. So the idea of Judaism being akin to the social justice aspect, I think is really important. And one way for us to reach students is, I think there's a big movement here on campus in the social justice area. So that's one way I think we can tie it to them and relate to them.
So you're comfortable that leadership back home, so when these young people go back home or the places that they come from are raising them up in their faith practice, or are you seeing that there's all different places on the spectrum? Some come, they don't know anything about it. Some come, they know a lot about it. Some have one general idea. It's different. Is it a variety, or do you feel comfortable with the state of Judaism in America today?
Well, I think it's interesting when people come to a service, high holiday services at Hillel or a Seder, they really want it to be just like it was at home. And we don't have that experience. We don't have a rabbi on campus. And so I think you have to embrace the fact that we're not going to be practicing like you would at your synagogue back at home. But I think the idea is that we really want the students to step up and be leaders. And so everything we do is student-led and student-driven and student-created. And I think that gives us a lot of flexibility. It gives us the ability to look around and see what's going on today in 2019, and how can we relate what's going on in the world to our Judaism and how it affects us on campus and our campus community. So I think it's really important to look at that. I worry about our synagogues. Some of our synagogues have thousands of members, yet only 20 plus or minus come to events, Shabbat services or whatever they might be. And so I really think we have to look at some of our religious leaders in our Jewish faith and make sure that they are thinking about how can they attract people instead of doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. We really need to look and see how can we change things up, how can we engage people, make it participatory, and how can we get people to really take ownership of their Judaism.
Taking ownership of one's faith. Do you have a sense that the students here, is there like a variety? Do you feel like if they're going to show up to Hillel, they've already sort of taken ownership? Or how does that work?
It's so interesting. It's such a great space, the Hillel building, where some students come to do their work, and some students come to socialize, and some students come for Shabbat services only in the dinner that we have every Friday night. So again, I think everybody's kind of searching and finds their own place to be comfortable within the Hillel community. One of the things that we really try to do is to promote community responsibility, so that they kind of go out in the world. We have something called Tikkun Olam, which is repairing the world, and I think that we really try to bring those values to our students as well.
You've both mentioned that, and one of the questions I thought we could get to is, of course, there are going to be differences. I heard the term brand of Judaism, maybe I used it. Of course, there are going to be differences, but what would you say are the essential similarities, no matter who you are or what form you have been raised practicing?
So Judaism is Judaism. Judaism is all based in the Torah and the Bible. We all have the same background, the same history, the same set of laws. And it's again trying to find where you lie comfortably within that set of everything. But we all share a history. We all share traditions together, and it's what they choose to do with it. In their family, and when you're growing up, you don't have a choice. You're part of a family, and you're based on what their traditions and what their rules and what their desires are. But then as you go off onto your own, you get to choose for yourself, which is you kind of get to start all over again. What do you want to bring? What kind of traditions do you want to bring to your family?
I think one of the great things about Judaism is because it's a matriarchal religion. It's through the woman's, the moms being Jewish. I really think that Judaism is a very pluralistic religion that really allows. We have a lot of women leaders, and I think that we're in a period of in U.S. history where we're really looking at through the Me Too movement and the Women's March and other movements. What we had Hillary Clinton running for president as the first real woman's candidate for a major party. The role that women can play, and I think that Judaism is walking hand in hand with those thoughts of how can women help us change our world and make it a better place and provide that leadership to do that. So I think that's really one of the positives I see towards modern Judaism. But again, Judaism can be practiced in so many different ways. We have a student who leads a spiritual journey towards Judaism, and he looks at meditation and yoga and a lot of Eastern philosophies and how that impact can or those influences can have an impact on Judaism. And I think that we are all searching for ways that we can look at Judaism and or any faith and make it more meaningful to ourselves. And so I think there is an aspect of Judaism that allows for that, allows for you to search and journey. We talk about a Jewish journey that you're starting in one place and you're ending at another, and we don't all start at the same place. We don't all end at the same place, but we're all going through that journey together. And that's what a lot of UConn Hillel is about, is helping people through that journey.
I really like that you mentioned the idea of journey, and I think both of you in your own way sort of said that exact same thing. And I think a healthy approach to any faith practice is to understand it as a journey, and I'm glad that you brought that up. We have actually run out of time.
Whoa!
Yeah, believe that or not. It was really great having you guys on. I'm especially thankful that you were able to talk so much about what you do here at Hillel. I hope that the students who hear the program will be encouraged to go and take part. It's wonderful. You're going to have a barbecue that's for everybody. So I hope everybody out there in UConn will show up to the barbecue.
Yeah, please come.
Scott's running the grill, so make them work hard.
Right.
It was really great having you both on. I appreciate you sharing
And
about
Brian,
your family
thank you
life.
for having us. It's great to have a neighbor that's such a great neighbor like you are.
Well, I'm glad we're all on Faith Row together, which I'm still trying to decide, is that a play on Death Row or just a nice lane on the street? I don't know. I guess
think
we'll
it's just a
figure it
nice
out
name of the
together.
street.
Well, you're very nice, Jacqui.
Thank you so much.
Everybody, this is WHUS 91.7 Stores. I'm the Reverend Brian Blair over at St. Mark's Episcopal Church here on the campus of UConn. We are very thankful you joined us today. Join us next week when we have a great conversation with Jack Gilpin. And everybody have a wonderful week.
Thank you.